30 years. That's how long I've been married to Karen. 3 decades of birthdays, bills, vacations, casseroles, and cold winters. 30 years of routines and repairs and raising our son. 30 years of loving her, even when she made it hard. And in that one moment, she reduced it all to a punchline. I stood in the hallway, still wearing my stupid, best dad ever apron, spatula in hand, her words ringing in my ears like the toll of a funeral bell. Stop talking nonsense. There will be no divorce. Today is Mother's Day. She said it like I was the one being unreasonable, like I had thrown this day off the rails. Meanwhile, she was standing in the doorway, dolled up in a tight red dress that I didn't recognize, low cut, like she was dressing for a role she hadn't auditioned for in 30 years. I need this night to prove to myself that I'm still desirable to other men. That one hit like a gut punch. We've been married for 30 years. It won't hurt our marriage, it will strengthen it. Then came the honk. A deep, long blast from the curb. I looked out the front window, and there he was, a towering man leaning against a black Charger, engine rumbling like a war drum. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even flinch. She turned and strutted toward him like she'd been waiting for this moment longer than she'd been waiting on me. She slammed the door behind her. The glass shook. I stood there in the foyer, silent, spatula still in hand. The air smelled like burnt bacon and betrayal. For a long moment, I didn't move. Couldn't. I stared at the door, half expecting it to swing back open and for her to laugh, say it was a test, or a joke, or one of her experiments in honesty. But no, she was gone. Then I went to the basement. I didn't go down there to cry, though I probably should have. I went down to grab something. No, not a weapon. Not that kind of revenge. I'm not a man of fists. I'm a man of follow-through. Precision. Patience. 30 years of marriage teaches you a lot about a person. Their habits. Their passwords. Their tells. Their secrets. And Karen? She had plenty. See, while she was busy proving she was desirable, I was about to prove something else, that the quiet guy, the reliable husband, the invisible man, could be dangerous in a whole different way. In the basement, I unlocked the cabinet she didn't know I had. Behind the drywall I installed myself during the home reno, behind the stacked holiday bins and the busted treadmill, was a fireproof box. Inside, a laptop, a burner phone, and a folder thick with receipts and digital breadcrumbs. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was careless. Karen had always liked to think she was smarter than me. She'd roll her eyes when I tried to tell her how credit card points work or how Wi-Fi routers log device history. She thought being louder made her right. But while she ran her mouth, I ran the numbers. And the numbers? They told me she'd been planning this long before Mother's Day. Hotels, private transactions, secret email accounts she never logged out of on the family iPad. Idiotic, really. The laptop word to life. I opened the folder I'd been slowly building for over 6 months, the moment I'd first suspected something was off. There were bank statements with unfamiliar withdrawals, dinner reservations she claimed were girls' nights, and even a gym membership she never once used. At the bottom of the stack was a flash drive. The contents? I'll just say this. A hidden camera in our living room had picked up more than her watching Grey's Anatomy while I worked late. That was the night I stopped being her husband and started being her reckoning. I slid the flash drive into my pocket, powered down the laptop, and opened the burner phone. First, a message to a lawyer, then to a friend of mine in IT who owed me a favor. Finally, a text to my son. Simple. Neutral. Hey, bud. Hope you're enjoying the weekend. Let's catch up soon. He didn't need to know yet. Not until I had everything in place. Because make no mistake, I wasn't going to yell or beg or fight. I was going to dismantle her illusion of control piece by piece. She wanted to prove she was desirable? Good for her. I was going to prove that betrayal comes with a receipt. And Karen? She was about to find out that some men don't burn down the house. They take the foundation brick by brick and build something better without you in it. The first time I met Karen, she was working the front desk at a hotel in Charleston. I was in town for a friend's wedding, and she was the kind of woman who made men forget why they came in the first place. Confident. Sharp. The kind of pretty that made you straighten your spine. Back then, she looked at me like I was the hero in her story. Now she looks at me like I'm the doormat she wipes her heels on before heading off to her next conquest. Funny how time distills everything to its truth. She thought this would be a fling. One night of hot-blooded rebellion. A quick dip in the ego fountain before returning to her castle like nothing happened. The difference is, I saw it for what it was, a declaration of war. And unlike Karen, I don't swing wildly. I aim. By Monday morning, I was already 3 steps into the plan. Step 1. Financial forensics. While she was off playing fantasy with her tall, dark cliché of a man, I was combing through our accounts. I'd moved half of our liquid savings to a separate, secured account under my name only. Legal. Documented. Protected. I even added our son as a backup beneficiary, just in case. Karen wouldn't notice for a while. She'd never been much of a numbers person. But she would. Eventually. Probably the next time she tried to order something shiny after a few glasses of wine. Step 2. The attorney. I met with her on Tuesday morning. Samantha Klein. Young, sharp, and mean in the exact way you want your divorce lawyer to be. She looked over the documents I brought, emails, screenshots, transaction histories, all tied in a neat little bow, and she smiled the way a lion might smile when you tell it the zoo gates are open. You sure you want to go scorched earth? She asked. No, I said. I want to go surgical. I want precision. Do you want alimony? I laughed. No, I want dignity. Samantha nodded. Then let's bleed her by the rules. Step 3. The image. Karen always cared more about appearances than anything else. She'd rather have our marriage look perfect than actually be perfect. That's where I started applying the real pressure. On Thursday, I sent her flowers. Roses. A dozen. With a card that read, "Thank you for showing me who you really are. I should have bought these for your replacement." That night, she came home early. I was in the garage, tightening the last bolts on the old Buick I'd been restoring for years, her least favorite project. She thought it was a waste of money, time, and space. I thought it was therapy with a steering wheel. She walked in, heels clicking with the fury of a woman who didn't expect consequences. She held the card between 2 fingers like it had been dipped in acid. "What the hell is this?" she asked. I didn't look up. Just kept working on the carburetor. "You read the card," I said. Her voice climbed. "You're trying to humiliate me?" "No," I said, wiping my hands on a rag. "You already did that yourself." The look on her face twisted into something I hadn't seen in a while, fear. Not the theatrical kind she used when she wanted attention. Real fear. The kind that comes when you realize the pawn you've been pushing around the board just became the queen. "You're being dramatic," she said, voice low now. "It was just a night. You think I'm the only wife who's ever done something impulsive?" I stood then, slowly, wiped my hands again, and met her eyes. "No, Karen. I think you're the only wife who told her husband she was going to go sleep with another man on Mother's Day and expected breakfast in bed when she got back." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She wasn't used to this version of me, the one who didn't beg, didn't break, didn't bite his tongue for the sake of peace. "You need to understand something," I continued. "You didn't just cross a line. You burned the map. And now, we're not fixing this. We're repaving it. Without you." I walked past her, leaving the scent of motor oil and finality in the air. She didn't follow. That night, she slept in the guest room. First time in 30 years. I slept better than I had in months. This wasn't revenge. This was rebirth. Karen always said I wasn't spontaneous. That I lived life like a blueprint, measured, calculated, too careful. She wanted fireworks, surprises, spontaneity. What she never understood is that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world isn't the storm, it's the silence before it. And now that I was silent, she had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen pretending to butter toast like it was any other Thursday. Her hair was pulled back. She wore my old college sweatshirt, her go-to costume when she wanted to look relatable. Like a woman who hadn't just confessed to committing marital arson. "You're not talking to me now?" she asked without looking up. "Not unless you've got a court summons in your hand," I said calmly, pouring coffee into a thermos. That landed. She flinched. The toast sat forgotten in the toaster, turning from golden brown to black. "Don't do this, Mark," she said, and I'll be honest, the use of my name surprised me. She usually saved it for scolding or seduction. "Let's just talk." I screwed the lid on my thermos with surgical care. "You had a chance to talk. You chose to confess your betrayal like it was some self-help exercise, and then you walked out the door into someone else's car. It was one night." I nodded. "And that one night just cost you the next 30 years. She tried to play the sympathy card. "What about our son? What do we tell him?" I looked her dead in the eyes. The truth. That his mother lost herself trying to find her reflection in someone else's approval. Her mouth opened, closed, then settled into a frown. That's when I knew she was switching strategies from denial to damage control. I didn't wait for the next move. I was already one step ahead. That afternoon, I had lunch with her son, Alex, 27, MBA, engaged, smart as hell. He'd always looked up to me, though I had no idea why. I was just a guy who went to work, paid the bills, and fixed toilets when they broke. But apparently reliability is rare these days. Over burgers and beer, I eased into it. You ever think your mom's been acting different lately? I asked. He squinted. Different how? I shrugged. I don't know. Distant. Distracted. Like she's somewhere else in her head. He looked down at his glass for a long second. She's been weird to Jenna, he finally said. Like, jealous almost. Keeps making snide comments about how quickly we're getting married. About how young love fades and all that bitter crap. That didn't surprise me. Karen had always needed to be the main character, even in someone else's story. I nodded slowly. If something ever happened between your mom and me, I need to know you'd be okay. Alex's jaw tightened. Are you saying there's someone else? I didn't answer directly. I didn't have to. He saw it. He leaned back, exhaled hard. Tell me it wasn't Uncle Dave. I actually laughed. No. Someone even worse. I didn't tell him yet. I wanted to protect what little illusion he still had left for now. But I made one thing clear. Things are changing, son. And you're going to see some of it up close. He nodded. Whatever it is, you don't deserve it. I've seen how you've held this family together. That hit me harder than I expected. On the way home, I took a detour to the storage unit. The one Karen didn't know about. Inside were the old boxes from the attic, our wedding photos, the scrapbook of Alex's baby years, the VHS tapes we used to say we'd convert to digital but never did. I sat there flipping through the scrapbook like a war veteran scanning old battle maps. I found the photo from our 10th anniversary. The two of us on the beach in Maine, laughing over some inside joke that's long faded. Her hair blowing into her face. Me, mid-sentence, probably telling her she had something in her teeth. Back then, that picture meant everything to me. Now it was evidence in an emotional crime scene. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared. Then I slid the picture back into the book, closed it, and packed it away. That night, I booked a hotel. Not because I couldn't stand to be in the same house. No, I wanted to give her the space to see what silence really feels like. She came home around 9, expecting me to be there. I know because she called me 5 times in a row. I watched each ring buzz across the screen of my burner phone and didn't pick up once. Karen had always relied on my presence, my routine, my forgiveness. Now all she had was her echo. And tomorrow? Tomorrow she'd find the divorce papers. Signed. Delivered. Time-stamped with the exact date she walked out on Mother's Day to chase a man who wasn't her husband. The next morning, Karen found the envelope on the kitchen table. Cream-colored. Thick. Formal. Not a post-it. Not a text. Not a pleading note with tear stains and promises. No, this was official. Sterile. Irrevocable. She didn't open it right away. She just stood there, still in her robe, clutching her mug like it might shield her from the truth inside. But the name on the top told her everything. Klein and Associates, Divorce Counsel. I didn't watch her read it. I wasn't home. I was sitting across town in a quiet cafe, stirring sugar into my coffee and watching the door. Samantha, my lawyer, sat across from me in a blazer that could cut steel. She's going to fight this, she said flatly. I shook my head. She'll try to manage it first. Twist it into something that makes her the victim. Samantha's smile was small but satisfied. You came to the right attorney for that type of storm. She handed me a file. Here's the next move. Inside? Financial disclosures. Custody clauses. Though Alex was an adult, we'd included provisions for future grandchildren visits, holidays, the house, everything. A full playbook for how this marriage was going to end on my terms, not hers. And the piece de resistance? A clause that tied alimony to fidelity. Not when she would have agreed to if she'd known what was coming, but when I'd slipped into a post-nuptial during a refinance years ago. You'd be amazed what a man can get signed during a kitchen remodel when the wife's eyes are on granite countertops and not the fine print. Let her explain that to her friends. I signed the papers. Calm. Precise. The same way I handled every project in my life. Karen called that night. I watched her name flash on my screen, over and over. She left voicemails at first, then texts, then silence, then guilt. Mark, can we please talk? You're making this into something it's not. I made a mistake, but you're blowing it up. I said it would be one night. Why are you acting like I killed someone? The irony? She didn't understand that she had. Not a body, no, but a life. The life I'd spent 30 years building with her. A house made of shared glances, early morning coffee, emergency room visits when Alex cracked his arm in 4th grade, anniversary dinners she forgot half the time. And now that life was ash. And she thought she could rebuild it with a box of cheap apologies. No. The only rebuilding happening here would be mine. The next day, I went to the house to gather my things. She was there, standing in the living room like a ghost in a museum she used to own. Hair brushed, makeup flawless, too much perfume. Dressed like she wanted to seduce her way out of the consequences. But I wasn't that man anymore. "You're really going through with this?" she asked, arms folded. I looked around at the place we used to call home. The couch we bought after her promotion. The art I never liked. The rug that still had red wine from the night Alex got accepted into Columbia. "Yeah," I said, grabbing a box. "This is insane," she hissed. "Over one mistake?" "One mistake." I turned to her, calm as glass. "You told me to my face you were going to cheat on me, and you did. You walked out of our marriage and strutted into another man's car like you were running errands." "I told you because I was being honest," she snapped. "Most women would have just lied about it." I laughed, quiet and bitter. "So what am I supposed to do? Give you a medal? Congratulate you for efficient adultery?" She threw her hands up. "I needed to feel desired again, Mark. You never noticed me anymore." That was her favorite excuse. The rewrite. "You know what I noticed?" I asked, stepping closer. "I noticed every time you changed the subject when I asked how your day was. I noticed when you started using your phone in the bathroom with the door locked. I noticed when your kisses started feeling like signatures, automatic, meaningless." She blinked, and for a brief second, her mask slipped. I kept going. "I noticed when you stopped loving me. I just didn't know you'd stopped respecting me too." Silence stretched. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You're not blameless in this, Mark. You made it easy." And there it was. The final act of the unfaithful, justification. Not apology. Not even remorse. Just a flick of the wrist, tossing her guilt like it was a scarf too heavy to carry. I smiled. "No, Karen," I said. "I made it possible. You made it easy." I turned, picked up the box, and walked out of the house I built, away from the woman who couldn't see value unless someone else wanted it first. As I drove away, I didn't feel sad. I felt free. And trust me, that's a dangerous thing to give a man who's just rediscovered his worth. There's a moment, right after you walk away from something that nearly killed you, when your body forgets what freedom feels like. That's where I was. Not joyful. Not devastated. Just numb. But underneath that stillness, something was moving. Reassembling. Recalculating. A man doesn't spend 30 years building a home, a family, a life, just to crumble like drywall under pressure. I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to renovate. I moved into a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, clean, quiet, temporary. The kind of place you choose when you don't need to impress anyone but yourself. The furniture was basic. The fridge was mostly beer, eggs, and leftover takeout. But the bed? Mine. The space? Mine. Every square foot of that little apartment was free of performance, lies, and perfume soaked in someone else's ego. First night alone, I sat on the balcony with a cigar and a bottle of scotch I'd been saving since 2013. Karen always said scotch tasted like smoke and regret. Fitting, really. I poured a glass and toasted the sky. "To regret," I said aloud. "May it haunt you, not me." Meanwhile, Karen was unraveling. I knew, because the calls started coming daily. Blocked numbers. Burner texts. One-liners dripping with desperation dressed as diplomacy. "We should talk before lawyers make it worse. Don't throw everything away over a moment. Mark, think of our family. We can fix this." Fix it? You can't fix a vase with a hammer. You bury the pieces and stop bleeding. I never responded. Not once. Because I knew that silence to someone like her is worse than anger. Anger you can twist. Silence? That's a void she couldn't control. But she didn't stop there. She turned to our friends. I got texts from couples we'd known for years. Jason and Linda. Greg from the office. Even my old boss, Tom. "Hey man, Karen's really hurting. Just saying, you two always seemed solid. Relationships take work." I didn't respond to them either. Because if anyone had been working, it had been me. 30 years of carrying the emotional freight while she played the damsel in stilettos. 30 years of being steady so she could feel special. Let them take her side. Let her cry her crocodile tears into wine glasses over girls' brunches. Let them see her heartbreak and think it's holy. I didn't need to convince anyone of my story. I had something better than validation. I had evidence. Remember the burner phone? The hidden files? They weren't just for divorce court. No, they were my insurance. My way of holding the truth by the throat while Karen tried to rewrite history. One file in particular, let's call it Red Dress, Black Charger, had clear time-stamped footage of her leaving the house, smiling like a teenager, adjusting her lipstick as she strutted into the car of a man she met at a gym 6 weeks earlier. She didn't know I'd tracked their messages, followed the burner trail she thought she'd erased. She didn't know I had his name, his address, and his wife's Instagram handle. The guy's name was Darren. Married. 2 kids. A mortgage and a Labrador named Tofu. I didn't blow up his life. Not yet. Because I wanted Karen to feel the threat of consequence. So I left a little gift in her inbox, a screenshot of her own messages. No caption. No threats. Just a mirror. She called within 5 minutes. I didn't pick up. Then she texted. What is this? Why are you doing this? Please, we can talk. It took everything in me not to reply. But I remembered what Samantha said. Revenge is not rage. It's revelation. You don't scream the truth. You show it. You don't destroy someone like Karen with fire. You let her rot under the weight of her own choices while you move on. 3 weeks into my new life, I started smiling again. Not performative smiles, not polite husband smiles. Real ones. Like the kind that creep up when you catch yourself enjoying your own company. I was lifting again. Cooking my own meals, actual food, not survival rations. Reading books I used to shelve for later. I even caught a Sunday game with Alex and Jenna. She pulled me aside after. You seem lighter, she said. I nodded. That's what happens when you drop dead weight. She didn't ask questions. Smart girl. And Karen? She filed a motion for mediation. Too late. The machine was already in motion. She'd left fingerprints on every part of her own downfall. She just didn't realize the man she abandoned was the one who had been holding it all together. And now that I'd let go, she was finally learning what it felt like to fall. It started with a letter. Not a text, not an email, an actual letter, left on my apartment doorstep in Karen's perfect cursive. Probably thought handwriting made it more heartfelt. Or maybe she was leaning into nostalgia, like a criminal returning to the scene of the crime dressed in church clothes. The envelope wasn't sealed. Inside, a folded sheet of cream stationery and a printed photo of us from our 20th anniversary. Aruba. We were smiling, sand in our toes, drinks in hand. She wore that seafoam dress she loved, the one that made her eyes pop. I used to think I'd never forget the way she looked that night. I also used to think she'd never cheat on me. Her note said, Mark, what we had was real. I lost my way. I know I hurt you, and if I could take it back, I would. That night was a mistake, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I do hope for compassion. For closure. I'd like to talk face to face. One last time. Please. Karen. Closure. That's what she wanted now. Not honesty. Not ownership. Just some neat little ending she could tuck into her story, so she could say, we ended things like adults. So her version wouldn't sound like betrayal, it would sound like growth. But what she didn't know was that I was the one writing the ending. I agreed to meet her. Public place, neutral ground, an upscale cafe she liked, all soft jazz and overpriced scones. I wore a navy sport coat, freshly pressed, the one she said made me look too serious. Good. Serious was exactly what this meeting called for. She arrived late, as always. Some habits never change. When she sat down, I didn't offer a hug. No smile. Just eye contact. Let her squirm in it. You look well, she said. I nodded. I am. She sighed, did the whole wounded act. I miss you, Mark. I miss what we were. No, I said calmly. You miss what I gave you. She blinked. There's a difference, I continued. I gave you stability, safety, loyalty. You confused that for routine. You wanted a thrill ride. You didn't realize you were the one making the tracks unstable. I made a mistake, she said quickly. I told you about it. I was honest. That has to count for something. Sure, I replied. It counts as evidence. That shut her up. I leaned forward, dropped a manila envelope on the table. She hesitated before touching it. What's this? Truth, I said. Screenshots. Texts. GPS logs. Video. Receipts. Everything I gathered while you were busy finding yourself on your little field trip. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I haven't released it. Yet, I added. Why would you do this? She whispered. What are you trying to prove? That I'm not your punching bag anymore. I stood up then. Smoothed my jacket. My voice stayed low but firm. You spent 30 years trying to turn me into a footnote in your story. But the second you opened that car door on Mother's Day, you became the villain in mine. I'm sorry, she muttered, finally sounding human. I know, I said. But I'm not. She watched me leave. Didn't follow. Didn't cry. Just sat there, holding that envelope like a detonator with the pin half pulled. Later that week, I got a message from Darren's wife. Yep, that Darren. Turns out my little anonymous message, complete with time-stamped images and a gentle note reading, "Ask your husband about May 14th. Room 202. A friend had made its way to her. She wanted to talk. I agreed. We met in a library, of all places. Quiet, safe, sterile. Her name was Lila. Soft-spoken, early 40s. Wore her pain like a cardigan, wrapped around her tight, buttoned up, but still fraying at the sleeves. I thought I was going crazy, she said. He started coming home late. Changed his passwords. Said he needed space. I thought it was work. It was my wife, I said. We sat in silence for a moment. Two strangers bound by the same knife. She didn't want revenge. Just truth. I gave her more than that. I gave her everything, the texts, the hotel logs, even the bit where Karen joked about wanting to feel something other than Mark's boring hands. That one made Lila cry. Then she composed herself. What are you going to do now? I shrugged. Already filed. Already moving on. She smiled, faint but fierce. Then maybe I will too. And just like that, the circle of damage Karen created had expanded. She thought she was playing a private game. She didn't know the audience was growing. She didn't know I had the receipts and the restraint to wait for the perfect moment. And the best part? I hadn't even dropped the real hammer yet. That came next. They say revenge is best served cold. But I prefer it precise, surgical, strategic, and quiet enough to make the guilty think they've gotten away with it, until they realize they've been bleeding out the whole time. Karen thought the worst was over. She thought that envelope I handed her at the cafe was the storm, the peak of my fury. That I'd walk away, lick my wounds, and she'd spin the whole thing into a mutual separation narrative for her friends. Something tragic but palatable. Something she could survive. She underestimated me. She always did. On the first Friday of June, Karen hosted a wine and cheese night at the house. Our house. I wasn't invited, of course. But I knew about it. How? Because I had access to the shared calendar she forgot she never removed me from. Classic Karen. All surface polish, no detail work. The guest list? Women I knew well. Former couple friends. PTA royalty. Her yoga coven. Even her new work friend Nancy, the one she used to whisper with in the corner at dinner parties like they were keeping international secrets. It was the perfect stage. So I lit the fuse. No fire. Just a spark. At exactly 7:12 p.m., each guest got a notification on their phones. A link, sent from a dummy account labeled simply, Karen_was_honest. .MP4. Inside? Footage from that infamous Mother's Day. Her standing in the doorway. Her shouting, I need this night to prove I'm still desirable to other men. Her slamming the door. Cut to the black Charger. Her sliding inside. Laughing. Then, the kicker, audio from her bedroom camera a few days later, her phone call to her sister. Unaware she was on speaker. Cackling, telling her, Mark's acting like I slept with his brother. It was one time. He should thank me. I'm more relaxed now. The video was only 2.5 minutes long, but it told the whole story. I wasn't there when it dropped. Didn't have to be. I already knew how it would go. First, the shocked gasps. Then the phones getting passed around like communion wafers. Karen's face draining color faster than the Merlot in her guest glasses. Her stammered defenses. Her voice rising with desperation. The quiet walkouts. One by one. By 7:30, the house was empty again. By 8 o'clock, she called me 12 times. I didn't answer a single one. The next day, I got a text from her. You malicious bastard. You humiliated me. How could you do that to me in front of my friends? I almost replied with, I didn't. You did that yourself. I just hit send. But I didn't. Because silence, at this point, was more punishing. And besides, I was busy. That morning, I signed the closing documents for a small lakefront property. One-bedroom cabin, wraparound porch, a view that could silence even the noisiest ghosts. It wasn't big. It wasn't flashy. But it was mine. Paid in full, using part of the money Karen didn't know I'd moved during the quiet weeks after her night of rediscovery. The rest? Sitting comfortably in an investment fund under my name. Not our name. There was no our anymore. Word spread fast. I didn't have to do anything. Karen's little wine club disintegrated by Sunday. Nancy deleted her off social media. One of the other women, Sarah, I think, forwarded me an email Karen had sent to the group. It read, "Some of you may have seen a manipulated video taken without my consent. It doesn't represent the full context of my marriage or the decisions I made for my personal well-being." It ended with the line, "Please respect my privacy during this difficult time." Oh, Karen, you wanted to be seen as desirable. Well, now they've seen you. Every inch of your truth. And you're right, it was just one night. But sometimes, one night is all it takes to show the world who you really are. I knew she'd come crawling eventually. Karen was the kind of woman who never let go of control, unless it was slipping out of her hands in real time. And after that little video leak, she wasn't losing control. She was in free fall. I didn't hear from her for 3 days after the wine night fallout. No texts. No calls. Not even the usual dramatic voicemails laced with faux sorrow. Just silence. And you'd think maybe she'd finally gotten the message. Maybe she'd finally figured out the cost of betrayal. But no, she wasn't done. On the 4th day, I opened the door to my apartment to find her standing there. Karen, hair a mess, eyes red. Not from crying, no, she wasn't the type to cry for the right reasons. She was crying because she lost the room. Because her audience walked out. Because no one believed the one mistake fairy tale anymore. "Mark," she breathed. I said nothing. Stepped aside. Not because I was letting her in. Because I wanted her to see what my life looked like without her. Clean. Quiet. Peaceful. She took one look around the apartment and tried to weaponize it. "This place is sad," she said, like she was inspecting a thrift store find. "Strange," I replied, "because I've never felt happier in it." She blinked. Reset. That's what she did, pivoted when one tactic failed. Then came the voice drop. The one she used when she wanted to sound soft. Vulnerable. The same one she used when she told me she was pregnant with Alex, when she crashed the car and blamed the brakes, when she wanted to fly to Hawaii, just the two of us, to fix what she was already breaking. "I know I messed up," she said. I was lonely, Mark." "No," I said. "You were greedy." Silence. She stepped closer. "We had 30 years. Doesn't that mean something?" It did. Right up until the second you slammed that door and told me you needed to prove you were still desirable to strangers. She flinched. She remembered. I leaned on the counter, arms crossed, watching her unravel. "That video ruined my reputation," she hissed. "My friends won't even return my calls." "That wasn't the video," I said. "That was you." All I did was hold up a mirror. Her composure cracked then. She sat on the couch, shoulders hunched, hands clenched like fists of regret. "I want to try again," she whispered. "No more lies. Just rebuild." I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who once made my heart race. Who I fought for, sacrificed for, built a life with. And all I saw now was a stranger in familiar skin. "You don't want me, Karen," I said. "You want relief. From shame. From loneliness. From consequences. But you don't get that. Not from me. Not anymore." And then came the moment I'd been waiting for. The real motive. "I'm broke, Mark." There it was. Not "I miss you." Not "I love you." Just "I'm broke." She explained, reluctantly, of course, that she'd tried to move some money out of the joint account last week. Found it empty. That she hadn't realized half the investments were locked down, transferred, or frozen due to pending divorce litigation. She was sinking. Fast. That lake house I bought? She had no idea it even existed. The money I'd shifted out? She thought it was still sitting, waiting for her nails and Botox budget. "You planned all this," she whispered. "I prepared," I corrected. "Big difference. You're being cruel." "No, Karen," I said. "Cruel would have been letting you keep pretending this marriage still had life in it. Cruel would have been feeding your fantasy that you could burn me down and come back to dance in the ashes." I opened the door. "You need to leave." She stood slowly, stunned. "Mark, please. You made a choice. Now I've made mine." She walked out without another word. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. She wasn't the one in control anymore. I was. And she just realized the man she betrayed wasn't broken. He was just getting started. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear a word from Karen. No texts. No calls. No surprise appearances at my door with watery eyes and crocodile apologies. Nothing. I thought, maybe, just maybe, she finally got it. Maybe she'd slunk off into the shadows to lick her wounds in silence. whisper her victim monologue to a therapist who'd nod politely for $150 an hour. But no, Karen was many things. Reflective wasn't one of them. The first sign came through mutual friends. Linda, our old neighbor, bumped into me at the hardware store. Her eyes were wide, cautious, like she was about to say, "Your house is on fire," and didn't want to cause a panic. "I probably shouldn't be saying this," she said, glancing over her shoulder, "but Karen's talking about you." I chuckled. "Of course she is. She's telling people you emotionally abused her," Linda said, eyes wide. "That the cheating was a symptom, not the problem." I smiled. Not surprised. Not even angry. Honestly, I expected this stage. When narcissists run out of charm and allies, they reach for their last lifeline, the smear campaign. It was predictable. It was pathetic. And it was perfect. Because I had prepared for this too. A week before the video leak, I'd met with a friend, Eli. Owns a small media consulting firm. Used to do crisis management for C-suite execs. Smart guy. Discreet. I gave him everything. Not just the affair evidence, but the character record. Emails. Notes. Old journal entries. Audio clips I'd recorded during our fights. Yes, fights. Not arguments. Fights. The kind where she'd say things like, "You're not a man, Mark. You're a paycheck with socks. Maybe if you'd aged better, I wouldn't need to fantasize. If I ever cheat, it'll be your fault." That one was always my favorite. Eli took one look at the evidence, shook his head, and said, "When this lands, she's done." "I don't want it messy," I told him. "Just accurate." "Subtle or savage?" I paused. "Start subtle. Let her hang herself with her own rope." So when Karen started chirping in wine bars and brunch tables about how I'd emotionally neglected her for years, how I was cold, controlling, and intimate, Eli's plan went into motion. A soft leak. A single anonymous Medium article posted under a pseudonym. Title? "The Invisible Bruises of the Loyal Husband." It didn't name names. It didn't need to. It told a story about a man who gave his wife 30 years of devotion, only to be cheated on, lied to, humiliated. It referenced the Mother's Day confession, the night of rediscovery, and the aftermath. There were quotes verbatim from Karen's own voice. Sourced anonymously, of course. It ended with a single chilling paragraph. "Some betrayals cut deeper than adultery. Some say, 'I love you' with their lips and 'you're disposable' with their actions. This is the story of how I stopped being disposable and started living." The article went viral. Quietly at first, just a few shares, then a few thousand. Within 3 days, a women's podcast picked it up. 2 influencers reposted it, calling it a necessary gut punch. Karen didn't see it coming. She didn't even know it was about her until one of her friends commented on the post. "Isn't this your husband's story?" And that was it. Her world flipped. She called me that night. I didn't answer. She texted, "You're trying to destroy me. That article is lies. I never said those things." Then, "Please, we need to talk." I didn't respond. But the next morning, Eli forwarded me a screenshot of Karen's new Facebook post. A long, unhinged rant about narcissistic ex-husbands who use emotional manipulation and tech savvy to gaslight and humiliate women trying to heal. The comments? Mostly support. From strangers. But mixed in were people who knew her. Old friends. Neighbors. Even a few family members. "You cheated on him and told him to be grateful. Hard to claim abuse when you planned your affair like a vacation. Actions have consequences, Karen." My favorite comment? "You wanted to feel desirable again. Well, now you're famous. Enjoy it." Rock bottom? Karen thought she hit it the day I handed her divorce papers. But no. Rock bottom is when the mask slips and nobody believes what's underneath. Rock bottom is when you realize the man you betrayed didn't destroy you. He just let everyone see you as you really are. And that's a wound no amount of makeup, mimosas, or modified memory can cover.